So, how many times did you hear the Conservatives use the word austerity during their election campaign? The policy of dramatically reducing public spending has been quietly vanishing from their political rhetoric, from the rhetoric, not from people's lives. This week, nurses, whom Theresa May told during the election campaign there is no magic money tree, reminded us that the 1% pay cap continues to push them towards poverty. It amounts, they say, to a 14% cut in real terms. Questions over whether cuts to local authorities were a contributory factor in the tragedy of Grenfell Tower refuse to go away. Whatever political credibility austerity had is now gone. With inflation on the rise and wages stagnant, workers are resorting to dangerous levels of personal debt to stay afloat. British people have carried the burden of flawed government policy for too long. Austerity is dead, and the government should come clean before more harm is done.
Yeah, the problem is the money has to come from somewhere.
Thank God for that.
So, although I basically agree with you that I think austerity is dead, and I think certainly the 1% wage increase for people in the public sector that's now gone on for, I mean, it's really 7 years, 5% over 7 years is ridiculous. It can't continue. Somehow,
when you look at inflation's 3%, isn't it, at the moment?
At the moment. But somehow you've got to get the money from somewhere. So what we're really saying is you're going to have to increase taxes.
The thing is, in my view, and the reason I say that austerity was a flawed government policy is that there's lots of evidence from economists that there are different ways that we could have handled our economic situation. For example, we could have borrowed money when interest rates were really low, when borrowing was cheap, and invested in big infrastructure projects that would have stimulated the economy and provided jobs. And we didn't do that. There's no guarantee, there's no way of saying unequivocally that starving the public sector was the best way to actually inject money into the economy to get things stimulated again. And if you look at debt, now we've brought debt down, I agree, but the deficit is at almost 90%, the highest level since the 1960s. You know, we have one of the highest deficits in the developed world. So all of this pain we've been suffering, and it's been suffered, let's not forget, by people who are the most vulnerable, who are the lowest paid, who are the poorest, disproportionately.
Are you going to answer Greg's question?
It hasn't solved the problem.
Are you going to answer Greg's question?
I agree it hasn't solved the problem, but the thing is, if you are still going to have to get the money from somewhere. Now, I have long been a believer that you've got to increase taxes. I don't see anything else. I don't think, and that's what, of course, if you look at Scandinavian countries, if you look at a lot of the European countries, they have kept their public services going because they pay higher taxes. And that's the choice we've got to make.
I mean, I agree with you. And it's interesting this week, actually, the British Social Attitudes Survey showed for the first time that 48% of people support an increase in tax. It's the first time more people have supported it than have supported tax staying the same. And I think there is a change. I mean, I completely agree with you, Greg, that I think that what we need is honesty in the political debate. I don't think it's helpful for politicians to pretend you can solve problems without finding the money from somewhere. And I think Labour have done that. Labour have been honest that we do need to increase taxes to generate more revenue. And
they only wanted to increase taxes on the richer people, which I doubt whether would get you the sort of figures they talked about. I mean, I think we've got to accept that if you want to spend more money on the National Health Service, then let's have a 1% increase, or let's have a special health tax or something to pay for it.
Let's not forget as well that
they can fund money when they want it.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Raising tax is not the only way to generate revenue. If economic growth provides more tax as well. Except
we have fairly full. It's not that we've got massive levels of unemployment. We've got fairly full employment. So, you know, the old Keynesian model was that you introduce big capital expenditure projects to actually to get people into work, which meant they paid tax, which meant they kept things going. We've got fairly high employment levels, which makes it harder.
It's funny you say that, and June, I want to bring you in, but, you know, it was interesting to hear senior Tories talking about how £1 billion for Northern Ireland would be great for stimulating their economy. So apparently, you know, Keynesian economics
seems to work brilliantly when it's a proper Tory government. When it's so they can find it when they need to. So that's the question. If they're really serious about this, they will figure it out, Greg. I'm sorry.
But the thing is, the scale...
And we cannot continue this way.
The problem is, though, the scale of what is needed to either, you know, increase tax revenues or infrastructure projects that then create a stimulation. It's massive. There's a massive gap at the moment between what's needed and what's out there.
But then what's
and actually, I think... Well, no, but I think Greg's right. I don't think you can look at it in isolation and say that, you know, let's increase taxes for one group of people. I think there has to be a nationwide approach to if they're going to increase taxes, so that everybody contributes, and that is pushing people.
Right, have you had enough of your group hug?
Come on, then. Come and tell us why
nurses your Peruvian knitted hats.
Tell us why nurses should be carrying the burden.
No, I've told you how we solve it. You're absolutely right, by the way, and you're right. 7 years these people have been like that. It is made more acute by that £1 billion that's been found. But I know Greg wants to speak about that, so I won't steal his thunder. But this is how we solve it, right? Who famously said we can't spend what we don't earn? Who famously said that? It's not me, Margaret Thatcher. And she was absolutely right. We can't spend what we don't earn. We have got a lot of money sloshing around elsewhere in the budget that should be redistributed. What about £17 billion in foreign aid? I know I've banged on about that. I'll give you a new one then, because you've had enough of that rolling your eyes.
But we know
what about
£56
billion for HS2, which is a complete vanity project? We should be rolling out broadband across the country, which wouldn't spend anything like £56 billion. By the way, by the time it gets up to Sheffield, who wants to get to Sheffield 15 minutes early? What the bloody hell are you going to do when you get to Sheffield? It's 15 minutes early.
As a person who has businesses...
Well, I definitely don't want to get there then if you're there.
No, and we hope you don't come. But I was appalled to have Sheffield.
I had a great time there.
No, I'm sure Sheffield. I love the people of Sheffield, but in all honesty...
56 billion there.
It's 90-something. Trident, no, we need to keep. Trident, but I've just found you 90 billion quid. Give all those men and women...
But you're confusing capital with revenue. You know, you really can't confuse the two. I mean, one of the good things about the Labour manifesto this time was it actually said there are two things. There's capital over here, which are one-offs, and this is revenue. And you can't confuse the two and just find great chunks of money. I mean, what is interesting is, I mean, you do remember the beginning of austerity where Mr Cameron said, you know, we're all in this together. Well, that's not what it's turned out to be, actually, because an awful lot of people, including me, have done pretty well over that period.
And if you work hard,
and if you work hard, but so do most of the people in the public sector. They work hard.
Yeah.
I just want to bring it back to, there is definitely been a shift in public opinion. Support for cuts in public spending is now only 29%. That's a real change. I just want to play you what George Osborne said when he told us how much we needed austerity. Just have a listen to this.
It is far too soon to say, job done. It's not even half done. That's why 2014 is the year of hard truths. There is still a long way to go, and there are big underlying problems we have to fix in our economy. More repairs, more cuts, more difficult decisions.
Now, you didn't hear the Conservatives using that kind of language before this election and since the election.
Look, you still haven't addressed the great sage of Sheffield's opening comment, which is, where is the cash coming from?
Did you read the Labour Party manifesto?
No. So you're just endorsing that?
Fully costed. I do endorse it.
You agree with that? So
I do agree with that.
Never have the rich paid more in tax. They've never, the richest portion of the population have never paid more in tax.
We still have one of the lowest rates of corporation tax in the OECD, Nick.
And corporation...
And even the proposed tax increase, we would still have one of the lowest rates.
Obviously, there's personal tax and then there's business tax, corporation. So they're all going to go up.
But, Nick, don't you agree the election result in itself shows us that the public have had enough of austerity? It's done. So, therefore, this government has to figure out a way to put an end to it. Simple as that.
You've just
costed it out for them.
Well, I've done it.
I agree with you, Nick.
You've costed it out for them.
I do think honesty is very important. I don't think it's fair to say only the richest will bear more of a burden. I think we need to accept, as a society, if we want to live in a way where there's a certain level of fairness, we do need to pay more tax. And I think ordinary people are willing to shoulder a higher tax burden.
Would that back what you're saying about this, the 48% that are saying, actually, look, let's support higher taxes? Because ultimately, I think we have to find a way. The problem we've got is that the poorest people are living on such a fine line that how can you possibly ask them to pay more in anything?